Riverdale sometimes deals with disturbing and problematic topics. We provided a list of content warnings in the episode description. Hello and welcome to Dead Ends. I'm Emily.
I'm Brenton.
And we have 2 new episodes from season 1 of Riverdale, which is almost already over.
I know, we're almost done. Next week, we'll be finishing.
I forget about this first truncated season. But before we do, let's talk about the world.
Yeah.
If you don't want to talk about current events, skip ahead. But we have to.
Yeah, and just for a timestamp for everybody, we're recording this on Sunday before this episode comes out, so January 19th, in the middle of the day. So
yes, it is almost noon.
Things might have happened, especially tomorrow.
Everything is changing constantly. West Coast time. It's
Yes.
important to note too. We're Pacific Standard Time. So TikTok was gone and then it was back. And for those of you who have been following for a long time, you know that I used to run a career coaching business, and I built my business during the pandemic because I worked in HR off of TikTok. And I made money on TikTok. I did a couple brand deals on TikTok. They were like HR related. I was not like doing any, it was like an HR software and something else. But I used TikTok in that like early stage. And then at a certain point, I went back to corporate for a bit. So I kind of just like got rid of that account, deactivated it. I kind of bought out. So I didn't really need it. Not like bought out as in someone purchased my brand, but like I was hired. So I stopped using it and I moved over to just using like a book account because I didn't want to deal with, I mean, to be honest, if you're doing HR during the day, the last thing you want to do is watch HR content at night. It's just like, it's not fun. Like I don't know a lot of people, even the people I know in HR who are like, I would love to talk about like employee data systems at 10 p.m. Like, no, it's just not the vibe. Anyway, not the point. But so then I moved over to Book Talk, basically. And that's when I had started writing and getting back into reading fantasy and all of that kind of stuff. I was really involved in that, as in like I was consuming it. I did not have a huge profile in that regard. But then things got weird, obviously. And things were always weird. We have to always remember like social media is always like whoever owns it is always doing shit and pulling shit. And all of that. But then in 2020, Trump was like, we got to get rid of TikTok. And then now that apparently our elected officials were crazy and decided to get rid of TikTok. And then but the Biden administration's like, we're not going to enforce this because we got 36 hours. But they took the app down anyway the other night because we're playing political theater now. And then Trump brought it back. And there is nothing that irks me more than watching people blatantly participate in propaganda. This is so blatantly obvious to me that the CEO of TikTok and or whoever else are making decisions, but his face is on it, they're playing a game. And they played a game with us, and we are the pawns in their little game, and we are the spectators, and this is their sport. And I refuse to play. I refuse to be treated in the same way that a fuckboy would have treated me in college. And you do not get to break up with me and then have me back less than 24 hours later. Mm-hmm. So I personally have deleted my TikTok. I will not be using TikTok anymore. I am still, unfortunately, on Instagram and Threads because it's really hard. Like, there's only so many social media apps that are currently big right now. We're also on Blue Sky. We are on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. But I just think that this is a fucking nightmare and it's a mess. And now we've got the president-elect saying that it has to be bought by 50% of a U.S. company or the U.S. We don't really know what that means because, of course, there's no explanation because he's posting it on Truth Social and God only knows. And I refuse to get on there. Though Brenton did the other day. I was like, last night I was like, oh, no more TikTok. What do I do? And he said, do we join Truth Social? And I said, what if we did?
This is a joke, to be clear. This
is a joke. We're not joining. But I did have a moment where I was like, wouldn't that be funny? Mm-hmm. We all just went over there, posted our unhinged book right. Just start posting about fairy smut underneath like pictures of Trump.
Book Social saved the publishing industry.
Oh, it's awful. We're in the worst timeline, my friends. All we can do is grin and bear it together, I guess, and fight back.
Yep.
But that's my big feelings, I think. I don't know if that was very succinct or kind of rambly, but we're processing things in real time.
Yeah. I mean, this is this comes a week after Meta's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, people were just lining up behind Trump as sycophantically as possible and just outwardly saying, hey, we want to get behind you as much as possible, and trying to get on his radar because Trump rewards people that are followers and trustworthy that way.
But
So
bend the knee.
Exactly. And so they're all trying to line up as much as possible to do that, and just communicating to everybody else we don't give a shit about you. So this is unfortunately just been a saga in that.
It's been, to steal the words from during the Hegseth Senate hearing, one of the Democratic senators, she said when Hegseth wouldn't answer a question, he wouldn't speak on a hypothetical about Trump, like if he would follow an illegal order and all that. And she's like, you've already done your genuflecting to him. And I was like, that's where we are.
Yep.
That's what they're doing.
Yep.
So I don't think there is a right or wrong way to approach this at this point. Like, quitting all social media lets them win and makes us all distant from each other and prevents us from having ways to communicate. For me, staying on TikTok felt dirty because those push notifications, or like the pop-up notifications, literally used President Trump. One, he is the president-elect. He is a former president, so it does get kind of hairy. Like, you can call him that. But anyway, that's not the point. And two, this was his fault. He did this. This is how we got here. And this is all part of their game. And I will not play.
You got to draw your lines where it works best for you.
But I do understand that, like, Meta is evil. Like, they're all bad.
100%.
They're all bad. It's all bad.
Yeah.
Everything is bad. But we got each other. Mm-hmm. We got you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We are only a few years away from a dark turn for Blue Sky. So just, find it where it works best for you. Because, yeah, I mean, this is just a monumental mess on both sides of the aisle that has now resulted in Trump notifications congratulating Trump.
Mm-hmm. The propaganda was very evident.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's not good.
No, it's a real bummer.
It is a real bummer. It is where we are, and so we gotta stick together. If anyone has thoughts, feelings, reactions, put them in the comments. Like, we're happy to chat it out with you, or if you have a better insight or any insight, or just need a place to react, we got you.
Yeah. And things might change in the next few days by the time this goes live. So
who knows what'll happen by the time we're done recording?
Yep. So fun times.
And on that note, are we ready to?
Oh, real quick, because other current events that we're catching up on a few days late now that I just want to mention, David Lynch passing away. Just in relation to this, I'm not going to call out every single celebrity that I personally find their art interesting and amazing on this, but I think it's related to Riverdale, mostly because with David Lynch's and Mark Frost's work on Twin Peaks, you would still, you'd still have small town mystery, but it wouldn't look as much like this. Twin Peaks was monumental landmark, those first two seasons.
I wouldn't be shocked if this had almost been pitched as a teen Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's got almost the Pacific Northwest style town. I mean, it's not, but it is. And it was shot in Vancouver, I'm pretty sure. So it really, it feels that way.
It's close.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure when it was coming out, it was a lot of drawing lines between it and Twin Peaks.
Oh, yeah, there's lots to play with there.
Yeah. So, and just personally, my favorite director, I found his movies amazing, and at least interesting to dig into, and the way he could conjure images that left you intrigued, but also trying to parse through what's happening, the puzzle, the mysterious nature of ways that he can kind of construct things, and this surrealness that permeated a lot of his famous work. It left a huge impact. So, and I mean, there was lots of people talking about his commitment to art because he's an artist first, and how he was always talking about creating art for art's sake. I will track down who said this on, I don't know if I'll be able to find it on Blue Sky, but someone essentially said, he was, kind of an outside artist who happened to make something that was like with Twin Peaks that was accepted by the mainstream. And so you won't get outside artists like David Lynch because they don't often have the chance to do what he did, which I thought was super interesting. And then also in another way that, Cameron Cusselman from Range Touch put up posts talking about it. It's like, yeah, watching interviews with him, it wasn't that he had this like unique ability. It was just someone who like constantly was working on their craft. And I think that's, we were very lucky to have had his impact, I think, on the world. And, so much that we got an adjective that was literally named after him to describe things. Let me see. Oh, from Winter K on Blue Sky. winterk.bluesky.com. Yeah. As an artist and a craftsman is clearly a singular entity, and will continue to produce singular entities, but the vast majority of them will not get the chance to make a landmark television series that legitimizes them. And then, we are impoverished by austerity's total conversion of the cultural landscape into a cultural one. And I think Carl McLaughlin also wrote a really nice post. And I think it's also interesting there. He's like, he hired me for his first his first and last major movie.
Oh.
Yeah, for Dune.
Oh, yeah. I think one of my favorite things about David Lynch is that he did not explain his art and flat out refused to. And as someone who cannot shut the fuck up, I admire that so greatly. Like, I wish I could just let the things I do speak for themselves, but unfortunately, I'm going to talk. And I just think there's a lot of confidence in your ability and your art to be able to do that comfortably, because like we tend to over-explain when we feel insecure. I just like to talk. I mean, yeah. I also am insecure, but I like to talk. So I as I'm over-explaining why I over-explain, Jesus Christ. But I really admire that in a, like, that's got to be kind of cool. I don't know, like how much that would have been accepted if it had been anyone else. So it's the way he did it that is also an aspect of that. But I always thought that was really cool.
Totally. Yeah.
And I do love the first 2 seasons. I like the original Twin Peaks run. I think that's excellent television. It's probably that's my favorite like thing I've watched that's his. And maybe my favorite mystery show.
Yeah.
Because I do love a mystery where the mystery is on the back burner.
Yeah.
I mean, it matters, but it's not.
If you're talking about, as someone who never wanted to talk about his art that way, he never wanted to answer questions within the thing he was making, for the most part, especially after, as they became more kind of like mysterious and surreal. As he went on in his life, his things got more surreal. And so less kind of like able to like put into a like cogent plotline. Mm-hmm. So, I admire that greatly because I really like that stuff. And I can, I'm just like everybody else where I can be turned off by it if it's not done well, but I think he was able to put it together. But to your point, like, he was legitimized by creating this landmark television. So like, I think there's a lot of people that probably do that aren't as similarly recognized. Mm-hmm. So.
All right. Well,
should we move on to the cast for this week?
Yeah.
We're starting to run low on people.
That's good. It means we know our players.
Absolutely. But real quick, I had to include the little promo art that they had for this week, which I found amazing. I'm like, that's really good.
You know what we need to do? We need to get Jughead beanies.
Oh my God, we do need Jughead beanies.
We're going to get so weird. If we're going to survive the next however long this is going to happen, we need beanies. Wigs and we need Jughead beanies. Uh-huh.
Stay tuned for future episodes. Well, we're going to start off. Oh, get that mouse out of here.
With a heavy hitter.
That's right. We had to put her first, everybody. I thought she was a season 2 addition.
Me too. I was like, she's here already?
Mary Andrews, who's played by Molly Ringwald.
I will say, I think we watched this first season in like 2 sittings. Yeah. So it makes sense that we have no idea what the actual pacing of this show is.
We're all thrown off. Yeah. It's making, yeah. if you couldn't tell from going us and must being like, I don't remember this at all. So yeah, Molly Ringwald, right? Child actress, but teen star. So started on sitcoms in Different Strokes and Facts of Life. The Facts of Life. That's the only thing I know about that sitcom. The Facts of Life is the theme song for it. Became a teen idol because she was in a bunch of John Hughes movies. So 16 Candles, first one. Followed by Breakfast Club the year after. Pretty in Pink the year after. They used to just make movies. Now they can't make television series the second season in less than 2 years. That made me so mad looking at it. I didn't even put that together before this. I'm looking at the dates I have
they used to
here.
just pop things out. I think part of it is also because, like, do you think there's less actors now or more more things that people are committed to? Because part of it is, like, getting people
That's
there.
true. Because it's not like you're just...
Or is it, like, the post-production editing? What's delaying television and movies? Do you know? Let us know.
Please let us know.
If you personally are delaying it, tell me why.
Yeah.
I'm not mad. I just want to know.
It's probably like you mentioned commitment, because it's like you come on, you sign on for a show for 10 episodes. And then it
gets picked back up again, but you've already booked. Like Euphoria. I mean, like Zendaya's booked and busy, I assume. Yeah. I don't actually know what's,
Mm-hmm. And then, at least with like Severance, I know they ran into massive production delays. So I think because of like the more money you're pumping in, the wider your ambitions with some of this stuff, that also makes it longer. They were like they also had like screenwriter trouble and shit like that. So it was like between not the main writer and then someone that they had problems with on the first season who was also helping write it, but they brought back for the second season after they didn't end up replacing him, and it sounded like there was some conflict there. Yeah, interesting.
Drama.
Mm-hmm. Also, Severance came back this week. Don't have enough time to talk about it.
It's not what this podcast is about.
That's right.
You need like a rambly podcast.
I know. We might need to throw that in somewhere. But
I'll just be screaming into the void.
Don't take that.
Someone probably already has it.
Cut that out. Molly Ringwald was supposedly turned down for lead roles in Working Girl. She would have been great in Working Girl. Fun movie. Silence of the Lambs, but also reportedly turned down lead roles in Pretty Woman and Ghosts. I was like, oh, so interesting. But she had moved to Paris in the mid-90s, so she actually attended school in LA during like her, after like these film things, or during that time. That was like a French school, so it was fluent in French, and would come back and forth to the US to work, but was also in French movies during this time. But lately, has been in the 3 Kissing Booth movies. I do not know if this is all the Kissing Booth movies. And in a couple Ryan Murphy shows. So the Dahmer one, at least the Ryan Murphy adapting real life shows. So the one about Dahmer, and then the second Feud season called Capote versus the Swans. There you go.
There's a lot of things on television that I don't know are happening.
Yeah, I don't keep up with Ryan Murphy anymore. I never did. What am I talking about? Anymore.
It's like
I think I would just like keep an eye out for Ryan Murphy. The only one
I used to watch American Horror Story and Scream Queens.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved Scream Queens. Never finished Scream Queens though.
They
kept moving it when I was watching it because it was like right after it went off the air.
Oh.
So it was like I could get it on Xfinity on demand, and then I had to go over to like I don't remember where else, and then someone else had it, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm never gonna finish the show, and I didn't. It sounded like a confession. I'm like, and I never did.
Just so you know, everybody, in case you're wondering, maybe that's something to pencil in for the future.
Yeah, it is. It plays with like the Pretty Little Liars A-text things from the beginning. It's pretty. I remember it being pretty funny. I mean, it's of its time, so I think there is that.
Yeah, mid-aughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Molly Ringwald, everybody, give her a hand. All right, Joaquin, played by Rob Racco. Joaquin not pictured because an original character for the show. And before this,
he's a greaser, like 100%. They were like, oh, this is an Outsiders-esque character.
This is a Stephen King-esque character. On an episode of Supernatural before Riverdale, but it was also afterwards in episodes of the Lethal Weapon TV series. And I Think You Should Leave. Not a whole lot on the CV, but wanted to at least mention those couple things. Then, Principal Weatherby, aka Mr. Weatherby, is played by Peter James Bryant. So in the comics, Weatherby is...
You have a different name on the screen.
Excuse me.
It was like... I was like, well...
This is what happens when you don't check.
You didn't hire your editor.
Apologies to Peter James Bryant, who's playing Mr. Weatherby. So in the comics, Mr. Weatherby is constantly annoyed at Archie. Like Archie's like either playing pranks or he's like the put upon person that Archie kind of ends up at the opposite end of Archie's hijinks.
Okay.
But is also the principal. And even though he tries to avoid Archie, ends up getting annoyed by him or something. So Peter James Bryant is known for playing the character Bling in Dark Angel. Once again, popping up here.
Didn't Jim say we should watch it?
Yeah.
We asked my father, my stepdad, but I was like, it's confusing. I call him by his first name. But anyway, you don't care. You don't know. You don't care. Anyway, we asked, he loves television, so we asked him about it, and he did say it was enjoyable.
So there you go.
So
another one maybe on the list. It keeps coming up. His first movie role, he was a paramedic in Jumanji. Had a small role in Scary Movie and the Fantastic Four movie in the mid-2000s. His character was named Lame Joke Businessman. Was also
imagine your first credit is like person too. Like,
Lame Joke Businessman.
Angry woman.
He was in the Zack Snyder movie Sucker Punch, which is about putting women in skimpy clothes in different nerd situations.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching some of that movie and being like, this movie's boring as hell. I remember when. And then...
I love that wasn't like a reason to watch it for you. You're like, eh.
I remember getting terrible reviews when it came out. And then I think at some point after college, I can't remember when, I like put it on and it's just like, no.
This is not enjoyable.
Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
All right.
And then recently in the movie Long Legs.
Oh.
Also in lots of TV. So if you just look up a million things like Generation X, X-Files, the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids TV show. I remember seeing this show when I was young. I remember it being weird as hell. Like, it wasn't just about like, oh no, our parents got shrunk or the kids got shrunk. It was like, we're going into different dimensions and doing weird science and stuff. Yeah.
I don't remember this.
Supernatural, Fringe, Psych, The Flash, many things. All right. So then our last person for this episode, Dilton Doily, is played by Major Curda. Dilton, did you know, is considered the smartest teenager in Riverdale High School? There you go. At least in the comics. He actually replaced Daniel Yang, who played Dilton in the pilot.
Oh.
So it seems like there wasn't a ton of on the CV here, but as a child actor, was in an episode of the Melissa Joan Hart sitcom Melissa and Joey from the mid-aughts, 3 episodes of the Disney show The Thundermans, in a TV miniseries called Joy. It looks like pretty much all of his siblings, he has like 4 other siblings, are like actors.
Oh.
So they all have like IMDb pages.
Interesting.
But it didn't look like his parents were. So there you go. There's our cast for this week.
Oh.
Keep clicking the wrong things in OBS. Are we ready to move on to the summary?
Yes.
Okay. Should I wait? Did you look up I have notes on the movie it's named after. Should I wait to come back around on that?
I did not look it up.
Okay. So we can come back around maybe at the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. So, Chapter 10, titled The Lost Weekend. Jughead pontificates about the order of weekdays and the wildness of weekends and ominously foretells something happening. Fred is heading out for the weekend and wishes Jughead a happy birthday. Jughead says he doesn't acknowledge his birthday. Fred asks to talk to Archie alone. He tells him that he's going to finalize divorce between him and Archie's mom. Archie tries to go with him and wants them to work on repairing the relationship, but Fred says no. Hiram's attorney, Paul Sourberry, is in town to prep statements for Hermione and Veronica. Veronica doesn't want to. Paul asks for humanizing statements about Hiram's character, and Veronica refuses. At school, Betty and Archie tell Veronica about overhearing the Blossoms got Hiram arrested. Veronica wonders why Clifford has anything to do with Hiram. In the hall, Archie tells Betty it's Jughead's birthday tomorrow, but he doesn't like to tell anyone about it. Archie says he usually goes to the movies with him, and Betty says she'll go with him now. She invites Archie along with them. Betty calls FP to ask if he can come to the movie and dinner. FP knows that Jughead wouldn't want him to surprise him and should stay away. Betty vents to everyone about Jughead never having a party before and wants to throw him one. Archie tries to talk them all down from this, but they don't listen. Kevin calls out Chuck for being back at school after his suspension. He goes over to talk to Ethel, and then Betty runs over to accost him and tells him to get away. He talks to her calmly, and he's like, well, I'm just apologizing to Ethel. Like, what's got you so wound up? But she walks away after gripping really hard into her hands, like we've seen before. Betty comes back, and Archie says, we can have Jughead's birthday at my house. Also, Chuck calls her Dark Betty. Is he the first person to call Betty Dark Betty?
I don't know.
I was like, did Chuck originate that?
I think so.
Goddamn. Betty surprises FP at work and invites him over to the house for the party. Alice is in school for the blue and gold. She's now the new advisor. Betty says she's working on Jughead's surprise party, and Betty asks if Alice opened up to Hal when they first... She's like, Mom, did you open up to Dad when you first start dating and, like, be vulnerable with him? And Alice is like, yes, but I wish I hadn't.
Alice Cooper, ladies and gents.
Betty says she trusts Jughead, and Alice is like, well, you should, just not with everything. Jughead and Archie discuss seeing a movie on his birthday, and Archie tells him he told Betty and asks why he hates his birthday. Jughead says, well, probably my rocky home life, and getting together and trying to act normal on my birthday just made me feel like really lonely. Veronica tells Hermione about the Blossoms. She did investigate and found payments from the Blossoms to the lodges that stopped when Hiram got arrested and had been going on for 75 years. Hermione asked for caution because it could look like Hiram... Hermione asked for caution because it could look like Hiram could be linked to Jason's murder because of this and tells her to drop it. Vixen practice as Veronica comes in late. Cheryl digs into her and Veronica pushes back. Veronica's like, well, why don't we have a competition to see who will lead the Vixens in the homecoming cheer? They have a dance-off and Veronica wins handily. Veronica says to never cross a lodge, and Cheryl stops her two lackeys and tells them off and says they're done. Archie gets a call from Fred, who apologizes for not talking more with Archie before he left. Archie says he shut him down. Archie gets upset at divorce talk and hangs up. Archie looks in the expensive liquor cabinet. Cheryl goes to Pops and proposes a truce to ruin Jughead's birthday party with Chuck. Veronica visits Paul to tell him her theory on Clifford. He confirmed Hermione's theory that if it comes out Hiram might look like a murder suspect. He hands Veronica a letter from Hiram that says Hermione will be drawn into proceedings if Veronica doesn't give him a character statement. Jughead and Betty go to the movies. They talk
that his lawyer delivered like a threat to his child for him. Like, can you imagine? His minor child. She's she's not even just like, oh, she's 18, but she's his kid. Like, she's a child.
Mm-hmm. Hiram is not even on screen yet, and he's the worst person. Like, diabolically evil. He's probably the most evil person, and he's not even on screen yet.
I love him, though, once he's on.
Oh, yeah.
He's played so well.
Next season. You gotta look forward to season 2, people. Jughead and Betty go to the movies, and Betty's even wearing a sweater that has Jughead's crown on it.
I love that sweater. It's cute.
They talk about Chuck, and he asks what happened the night she tortured Chuck. And she says Veronica asked not to say anything about it. The rest of the Fens, plus Joaquin and Ethel, are ready to surprise Jughead at Archie's house. Veronica vents to Kevin about her family and legal troubles, and we see Joaquin being like, overhearing. Jughead and Betty come home, and they all surprise him. Jughead realizes that Archie is drunk. Betty comes out with and he's like, no, I'm not, man, it's fine. Betty comes out with a birthday cake and sings him happy birthday. No one else joins in.
It's very haunting. Jughead even makes a comment, I think.
He's like, how haunting, Betty. Yeah, something.
It's because it's like dark and it's just the candles on her, and you're like, this is a horror movie.
No one else wants to sing. And he whispers to Betty as he blows out the candles that he wishes it was just the two of them. Veronica goes to the kitchen to cry, and Archie goes in to check on her. She doesn't want to talk about her family, and he vents about his parents divorcing. He feels guilty for choosing to stay with his dad because when they divorced, he had the option to go with his mom to Chicago. Veronica opens up about Hiram's threat, and he consoles her. Betty and Jughead come in. Veronica's like, I'm not really in a party mood. Jughead's like, that makes two of us. Betty gets mad at him, and is like, why are you always so doom and gloom all the time? Oh no, the sunlight changed, and we got washed out. So doom and gloom all the time, and then a knock at the door interrupts them, and it's Cheryl with a giant crew of people, and Archie's like, come on in! Jughead is angry in the garage as Archie comes in. Jughead is pissed, and Archie's like, she's your girlfriend, you get your birthday whether you want it or not, so just suck up. You know what, like, fair enough. FP comes in with a present for Jughead.
Well, you know what I don't understand? Like, I understand that he, like, when the party happened, like the big party,
Yes.
but that's not their fault. None of them, like, it's very obvious it's not their fault. But, like, could you imagine being mad that I had your best friend, our one other friend, another person who brought his boyfriend, and Ethel over? Would you be mad?
Ethel.
Like, it's not like, I got...
These are all nice people.
Yeah, we're not doing jingle jangle. Like, we're just hanging out. More to come.
More to come.
More to come.
We'll actually come back around on this. This ties into the title of the episode.
Jingle jingle. Of the party.
No, I'm getting angry and yeah.
Like, no, it doesn't. I haven't seen the movie it's referencing. I can tell you for certain.
I think that's like season 3.
I think so.
All right. FP comes into the garage with a present for Jughead. And FP's like, hey, that's a big party. You got a lot of friends.
What did FP get him? Do we know?
Oh, I don't think he opens it. Jughead asks if Betty called him, and FP confirms. FP interrupts Kevin and Joaquin. FP asks Joaquin to show him to the bathroom. Veronica sees him in the hall and remembers him and Hermione. And Kevin's like, oh, you don't know him? That's Jughead's dad.
Which is also so sus that it's like, oh, show me where the bathroom is. Like, as if they wouldn't all think that Jughead's dad would know where Fred's bathroom is. Like,
that is true. They're like childhood friends.
Yeah, I'm like...
Betty finds Chuck alone in the kitchen. She asks him to leave, and Chuck's like, you and Veronica ruined my college football aspirations. Betty's like, well, I'm not like sorry for getting revenge on you for harassing girls. And then Chuck taunts her about her dark side, and she slaps him. FP... Yeah, absolutely. FP asks what...
We should all bring that energy into this upcoming year.
Please, I'll slap the Chucks... of the world. FP asks what Joaquin is doing there. He says Hiram's daughter is here, and she thinks there's a connection between Hiram and Jason's murder. FP's like, oh, interesting. This is a little concerning. What does Kevin know? And Joaquin's like, well, I'll find out. And we see Alice looking through binoculars across the way.
From Betty's bedroom.
God bless her. Jughead and Betty... She knows there's a party going on. She can't not hear it. And yet she's in Betty's room with binoculars. Jughead and Betty argue about the party. Jughead gives the famous speech about being a weirdo, and we all cheer.
Yeah, he doesn't fit in, and he's not going to fit in. Do you see this hat? He never takes it off. Isn't that weird? That's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. Because you're just like, why? He did not need to explain to us that he's the weirdo. We already knew.
It's so funny.
And then, do you see this hat? I never take it off. Isn't that?
It's the button on it. But this ties back in. We'll come back around on it.
Okay.
I tell you. And Betty did the last thing he would want for his birthday. He says they are so different and he's not her project and that she's only around until Archie changes his mind, and she walks off angry and sad. Archie tries to talk to Val and he's drunk, and Val shuts him down and is like, I broke up with you. And he's like, wait, no, Val. And she knocks the beer out of his hand and tells him it's too late.
Love her.
God
bless.
Archie gets even more fucked up and then gets the spin and goes to lay down upstairs. And when his tummy hurts and his vision's spinning, he's like, Dad.
He's going to drunk dial his dad.
Jughead goes into the kitchen where Ethel offers him cake. But he denies it and tries to leave. Cheryl and Chuck stop him from leaving, and it's like, you can't leave until we play our game. And it's like, we have to play a game that get the secrets out in the open. She locks the front door. She tells everyone about the game Secrets and Sins, which is essentially she just grills people in the room. It's not really a game. She starts with Veronica and grills her on hooking up with Archie and that her dad bought the drive-in. Veronica turns on her saying she killed her brother because, like, she must have loved Jason too much and he didn't return the favor. Dilton Doyley's like, it's my turn. I know about Archie and Grundy. And then Chuck talks about Betty torturing him. Jughead steps up and hits Chuck. A fight breaks out and FP stops him and makes everybody get out. FP tells everybody to go home. Jughead goes to leave and FP tells him to go back inside and talk to Betty. Jughead tries to leave and then FP says, "Don't run away. You have something here that we can never give you. Go help Betty. She needs you right now." Jughead heads back in and Alice stops FP. FP's like, "Don't act so high and mighty because you're no longer on the south side anymore," and then tells her that a snake never sheds its skin.
A serpent never sheds its skin?
Oh, serpent. Crap. I wrote it down wrong. Alice tells him to leave. Yes, it's serpent. It's specifically connecting Southside serpents and her.
Which brings me into one of my favorite plot lines in the future. The serpent dance.
There's a lot of things that you just need to mark down. Jughead and Betty go to Pop's. He apologizes for acting mean and that he's scared of being himself. Betty apologizes for not telling him about Chuck, and she says there's something very wrong with her. She has this darkness, and shows him the scars on her hands from when she clenches her, digs her fingernails into her palm, and she literally scars herself. He holds her hand, and she kisses him. Archie vents to Veronica about being called out at the party. He says he drunk dialed his bad and to beg for them not to get divorced, but he doesn't even really want that and wonders why he wrecks things. Veronica's like, "I feel the same way," and Archie's like, "I'm just so messed
She
up."
also admits that she's like, "I accused Cheryl of twincest."
Oh, yeah.
Which is 10 out of 10, one of my favorite things that's ever been said. Just twincest.
It's so funny. Veronica's like, "I feel the same way." Archie's like, "Oh, I'm messed up." And Veronica's like, "Well, everybody is, but you're less messed up than most." He kisses her and they hook up. The next morning, Veronica wakes up in Archie's bed and Archie's asleep on the floor. She grabs her stuff and leaves and sees Jughead downstairs having coffee. They both have a laugh and he's like, "Ha ha ha, I won't tell anyone." Veronica asks Smithers, the butler, about her. Well, everybody knows Smithers. About her dad and if he was a good man. He's like, "I'd rather not say." And she's like, "Well, what about my mother?" And he's like, "Unequivocally good." Veronica arrives at the lawyer's office late to the meeting, but says she's ready to go on record saying how much her parents love her. Archie cleans the house and denies a call from his dad. Jughead asks about him and Veronica, and Jughead reiterates he won't say anything. Alice brings Betty tea and aspirin. Alice asks about FP being invited and who the other serpent was. Betty's like, "Well, he's dating Kevin," and Alice is like, "Oh, a scoop." At the Blue and Gold, Veronica visits Betty and tells her about testifying for her dad. She also says her dad hired FP to trash the drive-in and could have hired him for other jobs like to go after Jason. She offers to help with the investigation. Veronica arrives home to a package. Inside is a pearl necklace with a note from Hiram saying, "Thank you." Archie's mom and Fred arrive home, and surprise, it's Molly Ringwald. The end.
Okay, so tell me about the movie that this is based off of. The Lost Weekend.
Yeah, so let's go up to real quick. Let me get back up to my notes. So, 1945 American film noir, directed by Billy Wilder. So essentially, it's following over over a week, like a drunk an alcoholic who just can't help himself and the people in his life. So, and as he just continues to try and find new ways to sneak alcohol and booze and stuff, and will he ever get his act together, and will these people stay around and support him? So I think that connects a lot to this episode specifically of Jughead not helping himself, and people trying to help him out of his being closed down in his protective shell of being I don't fit in, I'm not gonna fit in, don't try and help me, don't try and do this. And while Betty, forces, it puts together a surprise party that he doesn't want to do, but he just can't get past the I can't believe you're doing this to me. I think I think it's really important when FP is go in there. She's had a horrible night. She needs you. This isn't about you.
Well, and obviously Jughead cares about her because the first thing he does is punch Chuck in the face. You know what I mean? I think it's very interesting the way Jughead is doing that. I'm going to reject you before you can reject me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that this is not going to work because I don't want to get hurt, because the people in my life that I have let in or loved, or every time I think someone has it together, they hurt me.
Mm-hmm. And I think when he talks about younger, how he didn't like his birthday, it's
because his family all pretended to have it together for one day a year. It wasn't real. It felt fake. And so the idea that anyone could actually care and it be real just he can't let himself feel it.
Exactly. So he's not, you understand where it's all coming from, but even though he is often the wrong person, he's awfully in the wrong with like regards, especially to Betty. It's like, oh, you're treating her wrong and pushing her away, like you said, preemptively. And then one last thing for the movie. It won 4 Academy Awards, which is Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Adapted Screenplay. And was also in the Grand Prix at the first Cannes Film Festival. And it is one of only 3 films that have won both Best Picture and I think it's the Palme d'Or at Cannes. That's the highest award of Best Picture. The other 2 is Marty from 1955 and Parasite 2019.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like this episode opens with Jughead talking about specifically control, routine, and order, basically. Like people like control, like they like things to be a certain way, that they expect them. They like order. And so you kind of have the people that abide by that and then the agents of chaos in this episode.
100%.
Like you've got, but even the agents of chaos, like a Cheryl Blossom, her chaos is her exerting control. She is in control of the scenario. When she says, let's play a game, she's in control. She's running the game. Which my favorite thing about that is that like this, this tiny girl is like, oh, no one can leave. As if Archie's house doesn't have a back door. As if a grown man is not standing there. FP could have been like, move. I'm gonna open the door.
FP being at the party the entire time is so funny.
I mean, it serves him because he's trying to get intel. Like it makes sense why he doesn't interject, but like it's so fucking funny.
Can you imagine going to a high school party when you're like 16, 17 and this like 45-year-old man in a leather jacket just hanging around?
You didn't have one of those?
No.
You didn't grow up in a small town.
Yeah. I guess so, but not to derail from exactly of her presence demands control, even if she doesn't have to physically exert it.
I love Cheryl is in control always. She's controlling everyone else and she wants to control them because she is the puppeteer. Because she's being puppeted at home,
right?
But not anymore. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Right, and because Veronica stole control from her.
Exactly, of her beloved vixens.
And it's funny following up from the previous week's episodes where she's crossing out like Archie and Polly, but that's not why she's like doing any of that stuff this week. Like she kind of gets along with Polly mostly, and this is a revenge solely about like I think maybe Archie is tied up in like, oh, you people just come in and try and take my stuff. But it's not solely just like Archie's betrayal of her.
When she makes out with Archie during the party. Her and Archie make out on the dance floor.
Is that in the opening montage?
I think so, isn't it?
I didn't think so. Maybe you're right. Wait, no, it's another guy. It kind of looks like Archie, but it is not Archie.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. You pulling up the tape?
Yeah. I don't know.
Because I think it's like some random guy, but it isn't. That has like red hair.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I was just like...
Well, we can double check.
We'll check the footage, but maybe not. Maybe you're right. I didn't write it down because it wasn't important to me.
Right.
I thought it was like showing how sloppy he was, but we'll double check.
Right, but I think
it was a different redhead. It was a stand-in, if you will.
Yeah, I think so. Wait, what am I on? I thought I went to Riverdale. No, I'm on Sabrina somehow.
Regardless.
Yeah.
So I think the focus on control, routine, order, agents of chaos, it's very like Eve, you can even do it with Alice, where Alice is like she reports on things, she controls the narrative. Like that's how she wants control, and she doesn't like that FP knows her past. Like she doesn't want other people to have control over her narrative.
100%.
I think he did say snakes don't shed their skin so easily.
Okay,
that's what I wrote down.
Serpents?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But
it's alluding to the serpents.
But that same way,
snakes don't shed their skin so easily is what I wrote down.
Okay. So yeah, maybe it was snakes. I mean, but an easy leap to make. yeah, of the whole control and facade that she's like built up of like, I am like well-to-do, which also makes you wonder what her and Hal getting together were like then. When she was a girl from the wrong side of the tracks.
I think so. Yeah. Then we have...
And now she's in her Stepford era.
Betty, who can't control what was done to Polly. She feels like she can't control who she is, this dark side of her. And she focuses all her control then on giving Jughead the perfect birthday party that he does not want. Which feels very, very normal to me. I'm like, this. I know people like this.
Totally. And you know, like when Archie's just like, you just go have the birthday, even though he's drunk.
He's not wrong for once.
It's just like, yeah, but that's not her. Like, just go. You're gonna have to have the birthday. Just go have the birthday.
Yeah, and Jughead rejects, like, couldn't control his parents, couldn't control his childhood, couldn't control any of that. So now he controls his interactions with things so that he can't get hurt. But he's hurting himself by doing that, and other people. He's hurting Betty.
And yeah, and putting up that isolation and pretending like it maybe coming back around, I think, to the way we were talking about of like, he's not really an outcast.
No,
that's all just a facade he puts up to like be like, well, that's why I don't get close to people and I only show them so much of myself. Well,
and even so, like in high school, like I think about like the kid that was like, that people were like, oh, that's the outcast, or like that's the kid that, you know, like people are afraid of, who was a very nice kid, by the way. I talk to him all the time. But anyway, he had friends. Like, he hung out with other people. There was no one I knew that, like, literally any sort of, like, person who didn't socialize or was, like, a true, like, not interacting with other people. Like, nobody talked about them. Like, if nobody noticed. So I always think about that, where it's like, oh, we just like have decided that there's a certain type of kid that then you're like, oh, that's the outcast. And you're like, the kid just wears a black leather jacket or like combat boots to school or like a beanie.
And he doesn't have the social graces that usually like other people, but like they're doing their own thing. Or
sometimes they do. Like, that's the aesthetic, or it's the like they're not trying to impress you, but they usually have friends. Archie's trying to control the chaos in his family. He wants to be in control of this parental divorce thing, and like he wants some stability. Yeah, because he's like, I don't even mind them getting divorced, really. But like every time I talk to my dad, I find I want to go no, because it's change. It's again instability. And Veronica also wants to be able to control her family and her parents and can't, and they're trying to exert control over her and making decisions that impact her. So I think it's interesting that the two of them are the ones that... So Veronica takes it out on Cheryl, but then she also is like, okay, let's drink. Like, her and Archie are both the ones that turn to vices. They're like their vice is like, okay, fine, forget it. Yeah, we'll like, cover it up. Yeah. Like, let's just party. Let's just have fun. Let's whatever. Let's forget it. Like, it's very aligned. Yeah. Whereas like Jughead's, it's like, I'm just going to run away. Also, Jughead should be mad at Archie because he's the one who's like, come on in. And it's his house. That, like, obviously Archie's the one who let this all happen. Right. Come back. But yeah, Archie like turning to alcohol and then getting so drunk that he calls his dad. I'm like, oh, this is so sweet of like the young, foolish teenager that I think has done so well of like, I'm so over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I messed up. But it's just that he doesn't know what he wants with his parents. And I think it's interesting. Like, it's very interesting that he doesn't get in trouble for anything. It's like, okay, your mother's going to come home so we can make sure that you're okay. Is also, you know, we'll get more into that next episode too. But yeah, just a good depiction of the like instability of being a teen and that you're not an adult yet. So it's like you still want to go back to like who your safety net is, and in a certain sense, like when you have like a solid home life or good relationship with a family member, that could be your parents. Meanwhile, I'd call my mom and be like, what should I do? And she's like, it's your life. And I'm like, Mom, up to a year ago, you were telling me that like I couldn't go outside, and now all of a sudden you want me to make financial decisions. I'm just confused. I think next I want to talk about like the lack of control. So people who don't have control. So for example, Veronica, Hiram is pulling the strings. Hiram has the control in that dynamic.
Yeah, talking about a bad home life.
Mm-hmm. He's controlling from jail. I'm just like, damn.
And talk about abuse.
That's a bad parent.
100%. Being like, well, your mom's gonna get tied up in this if you don't do any. If you like don't like give me a character witness about like how good, what a good father I am.
I know. Kevin and Joaquin. Joaquin has all the control in that relationship. Kevin does not know.
Mm-hmm.
And the lack of information being a lack of control, I think, is really important. Or Betty does not know about Veronica and Archie.
Yeah. That's going to blow up.
Jughead doesn't tell her.
Yeah. Everybody's just having a laugh at the end of the episode, and it's this lighthearted music. I'm like, you got to tell Betty.
Yeah.
Like, what? It's just, I mean, again, you're just looking at it like, oh, this is just going to blow up.
Mm-hmm. It just stresses me out.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they put all the relationship tension between Betty and Jughead at the end here. And at some point, it's going to turn around of being like, hey, Jughead, what the fuck? We had this talk about like opening up to each other, and you were just like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Because he's probably still maybe a little bit concerned about Archie.
Yeah. Well, about Betty and Archie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't excuse it.
Mm-mm.
Again, Betty the best. You don't do that to Betty.
No, you don't do that to Betty.
She doesn't deserve any of the ire that anybody gives her this week.
Dark or not dark Betty. All
right.
Bettys deserve the truth.
Women's rights and wrongs.
And I support them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got for that episode.
Cool. That's it for me.
You ready for the next one?
Let's do it. Okay, Chapter 11, To Riverdale and Back Again. So this, funnily enough, breaks the mold of being named after like classic noir movies, and instead comes from a 1990 live-action television film about the Archie comics characters. And so the like Archie in his 30s coming back, and all the other characters coming back to Riverdale for a high school reunion.
Love it. Love it.
So, I mean, who does that map onto? I guess the parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. The Pussycats sing for the morning announcements. Jughead tells us it's homecoming. The football team will be playing the Baxter High Ravens. Betty wants to hand off homecoming duties to Ethel, but Principal Weatherby's like, you made a commitment. Archie talks with his mom. She came because of the divorce. Archie says he's been okay and has been playing music and catches her up on his life, and he invites her to the dance to see him play live. Hermione got a call that their statements made a difference, and Hiram could get out early. Veronica worries about his crimes and maybe killing Jason. Hermione's like, don't demonize him over things you have no proof of. Jughead brings Pops to FP's trailer and find it's all cleaned up, and FP is even clean shaven. FP read Jughead's manuscript and says it's great. He asks why he wrote about Jason, and Jughead's like, well, I feel like I was picked for the story. And FP asks who he thinks killed Jason. Jughead's like, well, the story is about whether Riverdale is a place of good or evil. It's not really about like who killed Jason. Taking a page out of David Lynch's book here. FP says at a certain point, move on from the story onto your next one. Archie apologizes to Veronica for not calling her after they hooked up. She doesn't want to talk about it and says it was only a moment. She's like, you're boyfriend worthy. And he's like, well, why don't we try and do that then? And she's like, no. He asked to at least sing a duet with her, and she gets text from Betty and's like, we'll have to pretend this never happened. Veronica goes into the blue and gold and finds Alice and Betty. Alice says everyone is potentially guilty of killing Jason. Veronica tells Alice about the Hiram theory. Alice wants to investigate FP, and Betty says, I'm not going to portray Jughead by investigating his dad, who said he was innocent. At Thornhill, Polly investigates different rooms and finds a room full of dark red wigs and sees Clifford without his wig on, and he has gray hair.
And then Brenton goes, oh, good, the bad wigs were a plot point.
I forgot. He notices her and she runs off. Veronica goes to talk to Alice alone and wants to help investigate FP. Cheryl tells the friends that Polly is coming with her to the dance, and they're both campaigning for homecoming queen. Archie asks Betty to play at the dance, and Betty's like, well, the dance needs to be fun, and your songs are really depressing. And Jughead even says they make you want to slit your wrists. Veronica
in a good way.
Veronica says we're working on upbeat covers. Oh, wait. Cheryl calls, is it Betty Nightmare Smurfette?
Nightmare Smurfette.
It's so good.
It's so good. The writing on this show just makes my millennial heart so happy.
100%. Veronica and Archie talk alone. He asks why she's down for singing, and she asks him for help investigating FP. And is like, I spoke to Alice. And he's like, you spoke to Alice? Are you nuts? I'm like, damn, Archie's really correct on that one. He wants to talk to Jughead, and Veronica says no. What if he tries to warn FP? And Archie's like, well, he's my friend, and tells Veronica FP cleaned up his act. Mary visits Andrew's construction and sees Hermione there, who's weirded out that she's back, and they have like an awkward but nice conversation. Betty sets up for the dance. She gets a call from Polly. Polly says she hasn't found anything but needs to get into the parents' bedroom because they protect it obsessively. Her door opens and she hangs up. Penelope comes in with Polly's daily milkshake from Pops. Tells Polly to stay out of the East Wing. Jughead arrives to help Betty and says, why didn't you tell me about the dinner, Al? Or why did you tell me about the dinner? Alice told me about inviting my dad over. And Betty's like, a dinner? And Jughead's like, oh, you didn't know. Well, I'm so excited about this. I think having our family together will be both good. And Betty decides to go with it. Betty later accosts her mom and is like, what are you trying to do? And Alice is like, I'm just trying to have a dinner. There's nothing like insidious about this. And Betty threatens to tell Jughead about her plans. And Alice is like, well, Jughead seems so excited for our families to get to know one another. Alice is so mean.
She's such a bitch. I love her.
I do too.
She's great for the plot.
Oh, God. Archie comes home to his parents deciding dinner. He tells him that he's a bit thrown off on them both here together. Jughead comes downstairs, and Mary asks who else is going to the dance, and she invited Hermione, who Fred is surprised about. Archie asks if his parents are going together, and they say yes.
This plotline is so fucking random.
It is, just kind of out of nowhere. Jughead and Archie, it's like, we gotta give Molly something to do.
It's like, oh yeah, Hermione, come with us. Like, why? Not saying like she should be a bitch to her. She's just a nice person. But it's just funny.
To connect back to the movie it's based on, that, he's Fred is Archie in this situation, and Mary and Hermione are Veronica and Betty. Jughead and Archie wonder about the Andrews getting back together, and Jughead tells him about FP shaving and seems to be on the right track and wanting to go back to living with them. And Archie's
imagine like your parents shaving and you being like, they've got it together. They used a sharp object.
You just tell it's like, oh, Jughead, you don't know.
You poor baby.
You got to give him more time. I know his trailer was cleaned up too, but and Archie's like, hey, wait a minute, pump the brakes on that. Jughead's like, well, he even read my manuscript and engaged with it and asked me questions. Archie's like, what exactly did he ask? Jughead's like, well, who I thought killed Jason? And Archie's like, I gotta go run. And then Jughead's like, oh, okay, going to see Veronica. Wink, wink. And Archie's like, sure. And which he actually is. And she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, which is one of those things of like a phone call wouldn't work, but it's TV. Archie says he'll help her because of what Jughead said and doesn't want Jughead to get hurt by FP. They swear to never tell Betty and Jughead. Cheryl does Polly's makeup for the dance, and Polly wants to go retro and borrow some of Penelope's clothes for the dance. They both go in her parents' closet. Cheryl says the story goes that my dad's hair went white overnight after he saw Grandpappy was visited mysteriously by Grandpappy Blossom. This is, I'm not going to ruin it, but this is also a Twin Peaks reference. Cheryl finds the engagement ring that Jason gave Polly. Polly freaks out and wonders why Penelope has it. Cheryl threatens her and gets her to back off from taking it. The Jones and Coopers have dinner. Alice asks about the serpents and what FP did before Andrew's construction, and if he's upset or surprised, try him by the drive-in there. The doorbell rings, and we see that Hal is there for dinner, and he's like, and Betty escorts him in, and he's like, you told me that she wanted me here. And Alice is visibly upset, and he said, and then Betty's like, homecoming is for families coming together.
I love this bitch.
Veronica and Archie, in their homecoming duds, investigate FP's trailer. Penelope tells Polly that the last time Clifford saw Jason, he said he was done being a blossom and threw the ring at Clifford. Penelope leaves her to finish getting ready and hands her a milkshake. Hal confirms he's sleeping in the newspaper office, as we mentioned previously. He's mouthing off, and Alice threatens to throw a brick at him.
Love her.
FP talks about the good old days of the dance, and FP and Fred were getting ready to play the dance when he heard Alice and Hal fighting about something. Alice tries to stop him, and he's like, "Don't mess with me in front of my son." Betty says, "It's time for us to go." The Blossoms all gather around Polly, who's passed out because of the drug they slipped in the milkshake. Cheryl asks if the story about Jason giving back the ring was true, and Clifford's like, "Yes. I should have been nurturing you, Cheryl, to take my place, not him." Penelope asks where the ring is, and Cheryl's like, "Well, after Polly lunged at me trying to get it, I thought it'd be better to just get it out of here, so I put it down the drain so there'd be no proof of anything." And it's like, "Did I do something wrong?" And Clifford's like, "No. Quite right." Archie and Veronica find nothing in FP's trailer. Veronica has decided that something must be there and continues to search, and Archie stops her and is like, "What do you want?" And she's like, "I want proof that Hiram is good or bad." And Archie's like, "Well, you can't find that, but I'll be there to help you, because not finding anything in here tonight feels like a win." And they start making out. Veronica's phone goes off as Alice texts her, and Veronica realizes that FP could be on his way home, so they bail. FP drops off Betty and Jughead at the dance. She sees her mom enter the dance. Jughead asks to talk to FP alone. He has to come live with FP, and he's like, "Oh, I've been thinking the same thing, Jughead. It's time to get us all back together with your mother and Jellybean. We can go live in Toledo." And Jughead's like, "Huh? I don't want to leave Riverdale." And FP's like, "Well, people like us get chewed up here." Hermione, Fred, and Mary all arrive together at the dance. Jughead asks to talk to Betty after the dance and wants to figure something out with her together. Betty goes to talk to Cheryl to ask where Polly is, and Cheryl's like, "Well, Polly sugar crashed and canceled last minute," and then is all upset and stomps off. Cheryl, that is. Alice goes to talk to Mary in the bathroom and is like, "Oh, well, I mean, I've heard about Fred and Hermione," and Mary's like, "He's a grown man. He can do what he wants."
I don't give a shit.
"I'm divorcing him. I don't want him." It's so
actually
good.
want Hermione.
That Alice, I know. That Alice is trying to turn the screw, and Mary's like, "I don't care. He's my ex." Betty goes to talk to Archie and Veronica and sees them talk to Alice. Betty gets stopped by Mayor McCoy and Principal Weatherby, but she stares daggers at Veronica, who notices her. Betty runs over to grill Archie and Veronica, and Archie and Veronica avoid the question and go to get ready. Mayor McCoy introduces them on stage to play. Archie and Veronica perform Kids of America. There wasn't a screenshot on Fandom, and I wish there was, where the camera's zooming in on the crowd. It's like these crowd shots, and there's just Betty just looking so disgusted.
Imagine people are singing Kids in America and you have to look disgusted.
Just like these motherfuckers. But then we also see simultaneously at FP's trailer, police arrive with the warrant to search, and Cheryl's upset and leaves the dance floor. But then back at FP's trailer, Sheriff Keller finds a toolbox in the closet that has a pistol inside, much to FP's surprise. Oh, I also wrote down that Blue Monday was playing on their way into the dance. We love it. We love Blue Monday. Mary and Fred laugh about Veronica and Archie getting together, while Hermione sits sadly alone. Kevin opens up to Joaquin how nice it is to have a boyfriend finally. Jughead comes up asking for Betty, and Kevin then goes, "You all need tracking devices." Which is really funny. They probably realized writing the scripts, it's like, Jesus Christ, we just have Kevin constantly telling them where they are.
Asking Kevin where people are.
Kevin notices his dad is at the dance. Betty gets pissed at Veronica and Archie for working with their mom. Jughead rounds the corner, wondering what's going on, and Betty's like, "Do you want to tell him or should I?" Archie tells him about searching FP's trailer, and Jughead is pissed they went behind his back and asks how they knew to go to his trailer. And Veronica's like, "Well, we knew about the dinner." Jughead is upset that Alice set up a sham dinner and blames Betty for not telling him about anything. Kevin, Alice, and the lodges arrive around the corner and tell Jughead FP was arrested for murdering Jason. Oh, and the Andrews, sorry. We see Jughead run out into the night by himself. Jughead arrives at the trailer to find it torn apart and cries. Betty grills Alice on ratting out FP, and Alice is like, "It wasn't me, but I'm glad that you're done with Jughead and that family." Betty says she loves Jughead and is going to look for him and warns Alice not to mess with her. Veronica and Hermione sit sadly, and Hermione says FP may drag us into this. Veronica asks what happens if that does, and Hermione's like, "We'll cut ties with Hiram." Archie sits sadly with his mom, and Mary's like, "Well, I was going to ask you to come with me to Chicago. I don't think this town is safe anymore." And then asks for him to think about it, and he's like, "Yes, I'll think about it." And Fred overhears on the stairs. Cheryl checks that Polly is breathing and tucks her in. She sees her mom crying over Jason's death as Clifford consoles her, and we see Cheryl kept the ring. Betty arrives at Pop's, asking if Jughead was around. She sees Archie and Veronica there too to look for him. Betty doesn't want to talk to them, but Archie and Veronica say FP is being framed because when we searched his trailer, there was no lockbox or gun. The end.
How long was FP's trailer empty in between them leaving? Like, how did someone plant that?
Yeah. Fast as hell. Someone must have been watching them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh shit. They're about to go into the trailer and they're like, wait a minute. Now I got to hang around here and wait for these two kids to get out of here.
Other questions. Why is Jughead mad at Betty?
I know. It's so frustrating. Jughead. I think it's that similar thing of like what we were talking about from the previous episode that it's like, oh, I'm willing. He's not completely like, they had one conversation. He's not completely fixed on like that people are just going to be out there to hurt him. So it's like any sort of evidence that he can point that way. It's just you're out for me. This is another thing. It's like, I knew it that we weren't meant to be together and I'm just going to go protect myself now.
I think it's really interesting in the show. They do a lot of like light and dark, good and bad. You know what I mean? But then all the characters themselves are always shades of gray. Mm-hmm. Like we don't have purely good and purely evil characters, except maybe Hiram. But he's not really a character yet. You know what I mean? No.
He's just a force at the moment. And Betty is like trying to do good, but it's like she's being manipulated. So you can't really blame her as a, this child as like her mom, the master gaslighter, is being like, well, your boyfriend seems so happy. And it's like, okay, I guess. Who am I to like, I know you're trying to play games, but like.
When she tries to checkmate her mom, she's like, okay, well, I'll bring Hal.
Yes. It's like, okay, well, I do have control over this piece. I do find it great that he's just like, well, I've been sleeping in the paper's office with the broken window.
This is going to be the first of many episodes where FP tells us that he's working on trying to bring your mom and Jellybean home.
It's, again, Skeet Ulrich is doing such a good job with like your mom and Jellybean.
This man has to say Jellybean and not Giggle.
Jellybean Jones.
But yeah, I think like with this episode, obviously like it's tradition. It's can we break our family patterns? It's is the town itself the problem? Are we the problem? Returning to our roots kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I really love the idea that like the show is like focusing on good and evil, whereas all the characters are neither.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, that's good. Like it's a really well thought out concept to have written.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, we get so many of our protagonists making like bad choices.
Archie and Veronica.
For the sake of something that they think is good. Yeah, Archie, Veronica, Betty. I mean, it's even though hers is, I think, the least of it. It's still like, okay, not telling Jughead isn't the right move here. And then outwardly evil and conniving things of Alice being like, well, this is how we get to the bottom of things.
Yes. And the way they all manipulate each other to get what they want. Like Veronica wants to figure out what's going on with Hiram. So she's like, okay, well, Archie, I have to convince you that this will protect Jughead. And it isn't until Archie truly believes that by doing this will actually protect Jughead that he gets involved because he loves his friend. And it's just really, I think it's really well done.
Absolutely.
My question is, why hide their thing from Betty? Everyone has Betty on the outside. Like, why hide that they kissed from Betty? Why hide what they're doing from Betty? Like, why not just say, we're doing this? Like, why not own it?
Yeah, I know because
they're going to get caught. They're working with Alice.
Right, exactly. And I think by then they're like, okay, well, the ends will justify the means. And that's partially also the connection that they don't. Oh my God, what am I trying to say? Because they don't know how much that Betty knows about the dinner and things like that. So they will think of that. They don't want to tip their hand at all to Betty, who would go to protect Jughead. And that's all Veronica's choice there. right? Because of that initial conversation at the beginning episode where Betty's like, no, I believe Jughead. Like, I believe him when he says his dad isn't doing this, and I'm not going to go behind his back to do this. And where Veronica's like, that's not a good enough reason. Like, I have to know. Hers is all, again, like you mentioned, for trying to find out about Hiram. It's like, I want to know if my
dad, how bad this person that might be coming home to me is, and like how much he's really done.
Right. And I want to find the worst thing about him so that someone can't surprise me about it.
I think it's interesting in the last episode towards the end, we get FP saying snakes don't shed their skin so easily. And then we have a brand new FP in this episode. So it's like he's completely changed. And like how if that's what he says to Alice, do we believe he can have actually changed? Like, is he actually trying to turn around his life?
Right.
Or does he want to get out for other reasons? How much is he connected? And because we don't know all of that in the show, like I think it's really interesting and well done to have FP be this like, okay, but did this snake change at all? Like, is he at all trying to be different? Is he really changing for Jughead, or is it a way to cover himself, or is it both? Like, or like, is Jughead somewhat right that his dad is doing better? Like, it's really...
Yeah. Like, we don't know the reasons that he initially started reading Jughead's manuscript. Like, was it purely to try and see if Jughead had information?
Or was he actually interested?
Yeah. Just trying to be an engaged dad.
Those are really my big thoughts on that. My other thought is, does Polly not have to go to school?
Guess not. She just pulled... Well, I mean, she's been pulled out of school for forever.
I know, but I'm like...
It's just quiet mercy.
But now she's living with the Blossoms, which shouldn't... Unless she's 18, can she be doing that? Is she 18?
Do the police know that she's there and being truant in that sense?
Is she being truant, though? Because if she's 18, you can just stop, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Maybe. Is she 18? I forget.
I don't know. Well, because Jason's 17.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Good question. But actually, on that point, and like good and evil, is Cheryl having to balance that in her own home as well. Of what she does with the ring. And it's like, I want to, it seems to me like she's testing her parents. Of like, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to cover up something? Is there something actually worse going on here? And by telling them about like flushing the ring and all that stuff, it's like, okay, maybe there's something else that I should be like helping Polly to try and... I should be taking Polly's back more, maybe, or trying to figure out what my parents are up to.
She also covers for them still, though. She does not tell Betty what actually happened with Polly.
No, but she's upset because it's like, oh God, she's she can't. She's not there yet.
It's just interesting. It's a lot of children and very tough conundrums. That's the plot of teen television. I'm sure that was a very insightful take. I'm like, these children have a lot of problems.
Oh yeah.
Well, there's a lot of drama in this teen drama.
Dealing with things that are maybe like outside of their age as they're trying to grow up in the world.
Well, we're very insightful today.
That's right.
Any final thoughts?
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right.
So finale episodes next week.
Woohoo!
I know. We'll figure out who killed Jason.
We will.
Who could it be?
I know.
Actually, it'd be curious. Drop your comments who you think it might be.
Who do you think it is? Let us know.
Because obviously we already know. So
we do. And for once, Brenton did not spoil it for himself. He's just actually seen the television show.
Exactly. Historically. Damn, my historical watching has spoiled this show for me.
Much better than your Googling. So
yeah.
Well,
you can find this podcast on all your audio podcast platforms of choice at Dead Ends. You can also find us on YouTube, where you can watch the video version, where you could see the light changing and washing out the camera a little bit throughout the day. At dead_ends. We fixed it. Don't worry. And you can leave us comments, like we mentioned, on YouTube. We love talking to people there. You can also send us an email about any of your questions, thoughts, and theories at deadendspcast@gmail.com. We are also on Blue Sky at dead-ends.bisky. The dead-ends is the profile, and then at Blue Sky. You can find those in the description box. We have both both have our link trees where you can find our personal Blue Skies as well, and other links to other stuff that we work on.
All right. Well, I don't fit in. We don't fit in. None of us fit in.
We're not gonna fit in.
And we love you very much.
We love you very much.
We're here. And we're going to get through this.
That's right. Together.
Mm-hmm.
Goodbye.